Okay, it's not. So to repeat for you, our course is having the code BOX 1204, and the name is Basic Ecology, and I will say it is a 3CU course. That means it is a course that is made up of content which covers 45 lecture hours, And I would like you to assume this one so that it is clear seen by anybody may not be discussed. So the content of basic ecology covers 45 lecture hours. The meaning of this is that we are going to look at different wider topics, but mainly elementary or basic. In other words, we are not going to have a big difference from the ecology you've already studied from ecology or from advanced level. It is mainly foundational course because this being basic, it means it provides concepts that help you to learn the applied part of it. For example, in fourth year unit, course unit called Wildlife Ecology and Conservation. Wildlife Ecology and Conservation. Now, that one will only focus on wildlife resources. But in studying that, we'll be applying the concepts of ecology, such as population, the concept of community, the concept of ecosystem, the concept of, for example, environmental resistance, the concept of density-dependent factors and density-independent factors, which regulate the population size or population density of organisms. But there, the focus should only be on wildlife, that is the undomesticated plants, undomesticated animals, those we find in rangelands, those we find in savanna ecosystems, in the desert environments, in forest ecosystems, in aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. All of those are wildlife resources. So, the concept of basic ecology will be applied later. There is also another question known as natural resources ecology and conservation, where you will be discussing about renewable and non-renewable resources, exhaustible and inexhaustible resources, all of those. So here we are going to dwell mainly on the basic concepts. And of course, we will be looking at some content. Being basic, then we have to begin with the basic terminologies that are used in this course. Terminologies. The basic terminology is the terminology of ecology. Of course, you are all students of biological sciences, and one of the reasons why you study these things is that in the future we are looking at you as people who will be working, for example, with environmental bodies or environmental organizations, such as UNEP. You know that? United Nations Environmental Program. I have a student who's called Owoli Dominic. He graduated in 2019, and he has got a job in a refugee camp. He's working with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. That side of after Bushenyi, there is a district there, after Bushenyi, not Mitoma, I know Mitoma, but there is a district where they said there was a lot of rain sometime back at a district which had a lot of rain and people were dying. I'm forgetting the name of that district, but it is at the border, on the border, it is on the border. And he is working there as an environmental officer. He's working there as an environmental officer, but he is a student of botany and zoology. So, in such big organizations, there are other organizations like IUCN, but it is an international body which is called International Union for the Conservation of Nature, or Conservation of Natural Flora and Fauna. International Union for the Conservation of Natural Flora and Fauna. That IUCN is having many departments or subunits. Like one subunit is on birds, conservation of birds. Another subunit is on conservation of endangered species, species that are threatened mainly by human activities, by climate change, and that are at the verge of disappearing, of becoming extinct. And the IUCN, which is called the World Conservation Union, in some cases, they use that word, World Conservation Union. It was established in 1980. In 1980 to ensure that there is wise use of natural flora and fauna for the benefit of the present and future generations. You get the point? So, one of its responsibilities is to find out the status of the natural flora and fauna. Which ones are being threatened by human activities? Which ones need to be restored? Because there is what you call habitat loss. Some of the species are being threatened by habitat loss or habitat destruction. By habitat loss or habitat destruction. For example, if you clear away a wetland or a forest reserve, you convert a forest reserve into, for example, sugarcane plantation. The species which have been inhabiting that place, that forest reserve, like the monkeys, the chimpanzees, mainly the primates, and other species, the birds, even the butterflies, the amphibians, the reptiles, they will lack a home. They will lack a home. They will be exposed to human and other threats due to disappearance of their home, of their habitat. So in the process, they will disappear. They will suffer what you call local extinction. Local extinction may mean disappearance of members of a certain species, such that in a certain period of time, none of the organisms of that species is seen anymore. So that species is said to be locally what? Extinct. Locally extinct. It may not be global extinction. The same species may still be present elsewhere. But in that region, in that country, for example, it may be already extinct. For example, we hear the black and white rhinos that used to roam around within Uganda's savanna ecosystems, Uganda's rangelands, totally reached an extent of complete extinction in Uganda. And the few that are being replaced, that are being that are used in recovery, are being obtained from Kenya. In Nakasongola there is what called Ziwa Rhino Sanctuary. They're trying to restore an already extinct species in Uganda, the black and white rhino. You get the point? So I'm saying, as an undergraduate student, you've got many opportunities of working in these organizations, but you are supposed to be grounded in the language of conservationists, of conservation biologists, of ecologists, of wildlife ecologists. And without that language, you'll not be able to write technical reports. And maybe if they give you money, to show how you've spent the money using a technical language. You understand? So there should be a fundamental difference between a student who has done science and is working in this organization and another one who did psychology or who did social sciences. Your report should be technical, even in the language being used. If you are writing a project proposal for funding to be presented to the World Bank, and maybe you want to restore some degraded ecosystem somewhere, are you going to use the same language as a person from political science, as a person from, you understand? But you are also going to do a work which is about advocacy. Advocacy. You advocate for species conservation. You advocate for habitat recovery. You get the point? For instance, the government of Uganda may want to maybe to set off part of Mabira forest, and now you are working with an NGO, which is called Academic. Academic is an NGO in Uganda, which is called Action Coalition on Environment and Development. Action Coalition on Environment and Development. And you are going to prepare a technical report to present to a subcommittee of parliament. Subcommittee of parliament trying to behave as an activist, environmental activist. You said there shouldn't be any giving away of part of Mabira to sugarcane growers. No, we should not construct an oil refinery or oil something in Makerere Forest National Park, and you have to write something as part of this, because in this accord you will find even lawyers there. You'll find, for them, they may know the legal language, the legal language to use, but who knows the science about flora and fauna? It is you, the student of ecology. It is you, the student who has done botany or zoology. And here in Uganda, we also have what we call, there is an organization which is here in Kamwapcha, and it is called Nature Uganda. Nature Uganda. It is called RSBP. It is funded by the Royal Society of Britain. It's called Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. It is called like that. Royal Society for Protection of what? Of Birds. And the representative here in Uganda is called Nature Uganda. But there is also Nature Kenya. Nature Tanzania, every country. The Royal Society for Protection of Birds mainly looks for what we call IBS, important bird areas, not only in Africa, but in the whole world. In the whole world. And after identifying these important bird areas, based on certain criteria, for example, they may look at what you call season. There's what you call seasonal migration. There are some birds which migrate all the way from Europe in a certain part of the year, maybe when it is winter that side, and they move thousands of kilometers, navigating, following a certain route, and they will rest here in Uganda, like Lutembe Bay, Ziti Musamba Island, and other beaches. Every part of the year they come in thousands and thousands, and they will breed from there. And after some period, it's like they have a biological clock in them, inherent in them. After a certain period, they navigate back following the same direction where they originated in Europe. Like there are some birds called European starlings. So such a habitat like Musamba Island in Tembe Bay is jealously protected by these people, nature Uganda. And I remember one time, wanted to do there what you call floriculture, flower farming, growing flowers, converting the bed or the wetland into that, and he was resistant. I mean, he wanted a bigger part, but he was given a smaller part. The other part was reserved for these migratory birds. You get the point? Not only the migratory birds, but even the endemic species which are found in a narrow range of habitats. There are some endemic species that are found in a narrow range of what? Of habitat. For instance, the crowned crane. There is a species called what? The crowned what? Crane. Which is called the crested what? Crane. But that bird is a wetland species. It's a wetland species. It's endemic only there. So removal of a wetland would mean depriving it of its breeding ground, depriving it of its habitat, its home. You get the point? So those endemic species, their habitats are identified and then protected. Why? We still need these species, not only in the present, but also for the future generations. There is a mammal known as Sitatunga. Sitatunga. It is also found in wetland areas. If you go to like Lekembur National Park and you go to the part which is a wetland, you may find some of these species there. The Sitatunga is only endemic. It is only confined in some wetland environment. Remove that wetland, it will be threatened. It will be highly what? Threatened. These organizations like IUCN also publish what we call red list subspecies or red species lists, but red lists. They are called the conservation status or conservation categories. They categorize species. They categorize what? Species as maybe endangered species. Get the point? Some species could be called endangered. For example, at one time, and I think it has already moved away, the African elephant, which is called Rhopsodonta africana here in Uganda. Do you know that elephant? Rhopsodonta africana. It's not the Asian, not the Asian species. I mean, this time with the 1971 to 1979, there was breakdown of law and order. There was a lot of impunity within the Ugandan society. And due to that breakdown of law and order, people encroached on these species due to their precious ivory, and most of them were killed in the Savannah National Parks. During that time, they used to call them game parks. But right now, we call them national what? National parks. When you use the word game park, you are wrong. Why are you wrong? Because the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Natural Flora and Fauna, has now categorized protected areas, also known as CEES, into what we call national parks. They are what we call wildlife reserves. They are what we call controlled hunting areas and wildlife sanctuaries. But those ones are what we call in situ conservation. In situ conservation, meaning the species are preserved or they are left within their natural home environment, within their natural home range, without any confinement. That is called in situ. We call that one what? In situ conservation. In situ conservation. That is the protection of species within their natural or pristine environment. You do not take it, if it is a lion and it moves like 50 kilometers a day, hunting for prey, looking for prey, you leave it to roam. You leave it to roam around the entire range of its natural environment. If it is like the bushbuck, you know bushbuck, if it is waterbuck, if it is these cobs, the cobs, what you people call antelopes, but in taxonomy that is a general term. So if it is those antelopes, you leave them to roam as they are escaping away from the predators. You get the point? So that is in situ conservation. But when such species are displaced from their natural environment and kept within a confined area, like in a zoo, that one is called ex situ conservation. That is ex situ what? Conservation. So ex situ conservation does not permit a species to exploit its natural home range. Ex situ what? Conservation. So I'm still saying that IUCN, the World Conservation Union, has categorized protected areas. Those for in situ conservation include the national parks, the wildlife reserves, the wildlife sanctuaries, controlled hunting areas, and others. For ex situ conservation, we have the zoos, we have the botanical gardens, we have the seed banks, and others. But I was still saying that still IUCN has categorized species. Some of them could be what? Endangered species. And I told you during a minute's time, the African elephant was stated as what? Endangered. Why? Because of breakdown in law and what? Order. And most of them had been hunted to extinction. Then there is another category which is called threatened. Threatened what? Species. Get the point? The threatened species could be maybe not yet endangered, but the alarming rate of human activities, for example, deforestation, may lead it to the other status of becoming what? Endangered. So in case there is any activity, especially human activity, which is affecting the numbers of certain species, it may be brought to this what? This category. Do you know any other category of species categorization by IUCN? Extinct. That one is that? Extinct species. How would you define this one? Extinct species? What?
Extinct species are those species that are already done away with. The human activity has done away with them.
Only human activity?
Human activity generally.
But from evolutionary records, or what we call paleontology, which deals with study of fossils. Fossils being the remains of organisms that lived in the geological past. Evidence shows that there are some catastrophic situations which were not human, not humanly related, but natural, that would lead to mass extinction of all the species, all of the organisms. And currently, we can only study the fossils to understand or to know that such species existed. But they are not living or present day representatives. You get the point? Only the what? The fossils. Yeah. But some species could be termed data deficient. Data what? Deficient. DD. So there are some species that ecologists do not yet know their status, and maybe studies have not yet been launched. So the actual status of those species is what? It's not what? It's not known. But there are some species which are neither threatened nor endangered, and they are not extinct. What would we call them? I mean, the population is stable, and even when you harvest them, they are not threatened. Even when you harvest them a lot, the species is not what? Threatened because of high numbers. For example, have you ever heard of these the grasshoppers? The grasshoppers which infested. Did you know the difference between infection and infestation? And infestation and infection. So if they are microorganisms, pathogenic microorganisms.
So infestation can be referred to as colonization of a new place by organisms. Then infection can refer to related to disease-causing organisms colonizing either part of an organism that leads to cause of a disease or an infection.
So you explain about that, but basically, microorganism enters the cell. For instance, a virus, a bacteria, or it could be microscopic fungi when it enters into the cell of the host, that one becomes what? An infection. That one becomes an infection. But if it is a mosquito and it bites you, deposits its what? Its malaria parasites into the blood circulatory system, that would be an infestation, isn't it? It would be an infestation. So I was saying the grasshoppers which infested those northern parts of Uganda could be a stable population. That one, we don't call it data deficient, but if the numbers are high, even when you harvest them, they are not threatened. But partly it is because of the high reproductive rate, short life cycle, and in ecology we are going to use a word which we call R strategies. R strategies. We also have what we call K strategies. Some of most insects will produce very many offspring, a litter, very many, and even when you harvest them, the rate of recovery of the population is so high, and the population remains stable regardless of the rate of harvesting. Let us go back to what I was talking about, because I went through this way to show you the different organizations which can employ you. I have mentioned just a few. I have mentioned IUCN, the World Conservation Union. It has branches in all countries in the world. I've mentioned Nature Uganda. That one is here in Uganda, but there is also Nature Kenya, but it is being sponsored by the Royal Society for Protection of Bats, which is sponsored by Britain, and there is money there. Another one I've talked of Action Coalition on Environment and what? Development. But there is also what's called EcoTrust here in Uganda. EcoTrust. EcoTrust is the Environmental Conservation Trust. Environmental Conservation Trust. These ones may be non-governmental, but governmental parastatals, such as NEMA, the National Environment Management Authority. It could still employ you. There is what's called the Wetland Inspection and Monitoring Unit. Wetland inspection, or at times, okay, they use it called Wetland Inspection Division, or the Ministry of Water and Environment. But I think the name has changed to Wetland Management. The Wetland Management what? Unit of Water, Ministry of Water and Environment. That one is a potential employer of an ecologist. Another potential employer of an ecologist could be, but this is governmental, right? We call it a parastatal. Are we there? Even this one is a governmental body. Are we there? But there is what you call Uganda Wildlife Authority. Uganda Wildlife Authority is also a parastatal. It is headquarters in Cambodia, and the mission, or let me say vision, is to conserve biological diversity. To conserve biological diversity for enjoyment by the present and future generations. So Uganda Wildlife Authority has got many departments, but the department where you could be employed would be as a warden. As a warden. Now for them, that is the language they use. They say warden law enforcement, warden community conservation. So if you are working in this warden community conservation here, you will be dealing with the plants, animals every day, making sure that the surrounding communities love to protect the species which are in that protected area. But we have also what we call CAM. CAM is the Conservation Area Manager. Now the CAM is the overall. You may not straight out from university become a CAM, a Conservation Area Manager. You may pass through certain steps until you are promoted. But I know many colleagues that I studied with who are already there working as the park wardens, national park wardens in different capacities. So the number of Ugandan and non-government and the NGOs, Ugandan parastatals, Ugandan NGOs, and even international organizations which can employ an ecologist. But I want to emphasize that the technical language is what we are going to be testing you to ensure that you leave the course when you are equipped with the language of ecology. Okay. Now, an endangered species. That one is it's a conservation status, which is near, extinction, which is near what? Extinction. And I gave an example of the African elephant, which was overhunted or overpoached during Amini's regime. And the numbers reduced to as low as around 500 in the whole country. That means if you went to Marshall Forest National Park, you would find less than 100. If you went to Queen Elizabeth National Park, you would find less than 100. So the hunting, the poaching was so high that the numbers dropped to a very low level. And for an endangered species, unless a lot of effort is invested in species recovery through active and intensive breeding programs, that species will become extinct. You get the point? Unless the authorities, the leadership, realizes the problem and then launches intensive breeding programs to increase the numbers and restore the wild and the protected areas. Otherwise, if they don't do that, it may disappear. Or the authorities should identify the cause of the species endangerment. What is causing the species to get endangered? And then institute serious laws, penalties, punishments to the perpetrators in order to save the species. You get the point? So that one is endangered, but it is mainly as a result of too much human activity, like alarming rates of deforestation or wetland conversion and so on. But now a threatened species, first of all, it is not yet at the status of being endangered. However, the uncontrolled rate of human activities, the uncontrolled rate of human activities. If not checked, if the uncontrolled rate of human activity, like deforestation, is not what? Checked or controlled, it may make this species become what? Endangered. Then there is what you call near threatened. That is another category I had left out. Near what? Near threatened species. That would mean it is not yet threatened, but they are indicators. For instance, let me give an example. If maybe these traditional herbalists, the traditional herbalists, if they discover a certain medicinal value in a certain tree, which is harboring, a certain species of birds. Like we have here in Makerere, there is a bird which is called, in Uganda they call it a cockroaches, but in English they call it the eastern grey plantain eaters. The eastern grey plantain eaters. They are birds which people. You have ever heard of them? Around here, jumping around or around those trees. They will only eat fruits on those trees where you find them. And now, if the trees that are costly or harboring the eastern grey plantain eaters are identified to have a medicinal value, and then herbalists come around Makerere, they begin removing the bark, the roots, the trees, and so on. When a conservation biologist identifies such an exploitative value of this tree, which is a home to the bird, you begin raising questions about the future of the status of those birds, the celebrated eaters. Why? Because it means that more and more herbalists exploit those trees, they are likely to make these species threatened. Are we there? And continually unchecked or uncontrolled exploitation will make them endangered. Are we there? And may result into local extinction. You get the point? Going back to our terminologies, this terminology, ecology, is explained, it originates from two Greek words. Ecology originates, that term originates from two Greek words, oikos and logos. The first Greek word oikos means home. It means home, or we can say it may mean a dwelling, a place where an organism lives. And the other one, knowledge, logos, means knowledge. Knowledge, study of, in other words, literary. That is from the dictionary definition. Ecology would mean the study of homes of living organisms, study of places where living organisms live. However, we know that ecology deals with interrelationships among organisms. It deals with what?
Interrelationships.
Yes, it deals with how organisms relate with one another. And we prefer to use that word interrelationships. Interrelationships among living organisms. Are we there? Yes. How living organisms interact. Interrelationships. Another word is what? Interactions among one another and with their environment. And with their what? Environment. Get the point? And right from senior one, we were told that ecology is the study, or it is the branch of biology dealing with the study of organisms in relation to their what? Environment. In relation to their environment. It is a field science. It is the laboratory of ecology. It's the field. The laboratory of ecology is the what? The field. Although there are certain lab-based experiments which could be done on ecology. But most of ecological studies should be field studies. Right now we are organizing a field course where we are going to take, but you can also go with us. You can also go with us. But you're going to take from second year up to fourth year. And we are going to go to a place near Chivale National Park. They call it Makerere University Biological Field Station. And when we go there, the only work we shall be doing will be to be in the field. To be in the field. They will take you to the forest. You see these primates. You will see the olive baboons. You will see the chimpanzees. You will see different kinds of monkeys, the red-tailed monkeys, the red colobus monkeys, the black and white monkeys, which you call colobus guereza. You will see the great chikitimanga bears. The Baganda call it engeye, great chikitimanga bears. They are all there. And the forest is their home. It is in the forest that they get the fruits, those which are fruit feeders or frugivores. It is in the forest that they get the seeds, those which are seed eaters, also known as granivores. It is in the forest that these animals get the grass, those which are herbivorous or grazers. You may even find there browsers that feed on leaves, on trees. So you visit that place and you find there a lot of ecological interactions where there are plants and animals interacting together through feeding relationships. Are we there? Or through providing homes. Providing homes. You could directly or indirectly do ecological studies. For example, you may not see a living elephant, but they will tell you to study about elephants. When those professors are there, they will tell you to study about elephants. And you will go on looking for elephant dung as an indirect method of estimating the population density of those elephants in that Chivale forest. You will also look for the footprints as an indirect method of estimating population density and other signs that are left by the animals as they leave a certain area. You get the point? So, ecologists have a lot to study. You could do only study about only plants, and you don't go into the animals. What can you study about plants? They are in that forest. There are sections of the forest which have been logged. They have been cut in order to reduce the shade on the shade. You know, a forest has got a dense canopy, that prevents light from reaching on the surface of the ground. And experimentally, the university and a number of PhD researchers have worked on logging, clearing parts of the forest and comparing what we call succession, vegetation succession in logged and unlogged areas. They study a lot of things which do not even touch on animals, but they are only looking at grasses, they're looking at the trees. You understand? They are looking at the herbs, the herbaceous species. So, botanical and zoological, ecological research can be done in such an area. But we will also get an opportunity, I think, to go to, because that is a forest ecosystem, we'll get an opportunity of going to a savanna. A savanna is a type of habitat which is characterized by more cover of grass and a few scattered trees. The trees are scattered here and there, but most of the vegetation, most of the plant cover is grass. You get the point? So you could study on grasses in a savanna ecosystem there, but you can also study about the animals in a savanna environment. What you'll find in Queen Elizabeth is not exactly the animal community within a forest. You get the point? But also very interesting, if time allows and if money allows, we will also study, we will do ecological studies on what we call aquatic species. Aquatic species. There is a channel which is known as Kazinga Channel, which is part of the Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area. That channel connects a certain lake here in Uganda. They call it Lake what?
Edward.
Lake Edward. And the other lake, the other side is called what?
George.
Is it DRC? Lake George. So we.
No, George.
The other one is called
Edward and George this side.
Edward and Lake George. Okay, but that channel is called Kazinga Channel. It starts from the national park, from Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area. And part of that lake is part of the Queen Elizabeth Conservation Area. So we take what you call a boat ride. And in that boat ride, we study about there are species called hippopotamuses. Hippos. Those animals, most of the time, are in water, although they are land animals, they are terrestrial, but they like spending most of their time in water. So as you take a boat ride on the Kazinga Channel, you can be able to count them because they just pull out their head. The rest of the body, they are giant creatures, giant animals. The rest of the body is in water. You get the point? And then you only count that visible head. You use a kind of census. Census. You count as you are taking this transit, kind of, and then as you return from the other side, you take another transit and again count. Then you get the average, which helps you to estimate the population of hippos in that area. But you can also estimate the population of crocodiles. Crocodiles, they are also there in the water, and you'll be seeing them as you go over the what? Over the water, and you can count them. You get the point? Although you have to be careful. You have to be careful because they are mighty creatures. They can overturn your boat. So the boat rider has to be careful. But you can see them. So all of those are ecological studies. In this case, the hippos and the crocodiles interacting with water. Are you with me? Water which is not living. So that is why we say interactions among organisms themselves and with their what? With their environment. And this introduces us to a broad word, which is called environment. But before environment, the scientists who study ecology about what? Ecologists. An ecologist specializes in the ecological studies and ecological research. Ecological what? Research. You should not only pass this paper of basic ecology and then you go on posing to be an ecologist. No, you should go beyond this. You should develop what we call an ecological research problem, an ecological research area, and then you write proposals to get funding, and you investigate that ecological research what? Problem. When you write and publish, then you become a what? An ecologist in that area. I've already said that ecology is a practical science. It's a what? It's a practical science. And like other sciences, it is based on a body of knowledge, on certain theories, on certain concepts, or even certain laws. You get the point? But important to note is that it is the field what? It's a field science. The laboratory of an ecologist is the field. Are we there? I've said the field could be a forest. Are we there? Are we there? The field could be a wetland. Are we there? Yes. The field could be what? Savannah. Savannah or a grassland. You get the point? The field could be a water body. Are we there? Could be aquatic. And aquatic here, we have what we call freshwater ecosystems and marine ecosystems. Now, here in Africa, we have what we call freshwater ecosystems. But when you go to Europe, not only Europe, but even here in South Africa, when I was in South Africa, in Cape Town, they gave me fish for a lot of money. They call them South African rands. And no sooner had I picked a small portion, what you call ongura, small portion, then I spit it away. I began spitting it away. Why? Because when you are using it to the Ugandan fish from freshwater lake, you will feel as if you are eating something, something like what? It is not even salty, but it has some undelicious taste. So I just threw it out and wasted all my money. It was fried, well fried. I bought it from a supermarket in Cape Town. And then when I reached where I was sleeping in Stellenbosch City, Stellenbosch town. So when I reached there, I opened it, I chewed a small portion, and I just threw it away. Why? Because it has a bad taste if we are using it to this fresh water. So for them, their ecosystems are salty or saline environments. And they call them what? Marine what? Ecosystems. They are called marine ecosystems. You can even do it in a desert environment. You know what? A desert what? Environment. Or what we call arid. Eh? What we call arid what? Environment. Or we can call it what? Semi what? Semi-arid environment. That one will be your field. You get the point. But I can't say that you should go to a zoo. It may not be good enough for you to watch or to study the, the natural behaviors or behavior patterns of an animal or a plant. Go in this what? Natural habitats or natural protected what? Areas. These are called protected what? Some of them are called protected areas. So ecology is a field what? Science. And you could do lab-based studies or experiments, but most ecological research is in the field. Another term is the environment. Environment. This is the term that means the total sum or the sum total of all the conditions. Sum total of all what?
Conditions.
The conditions, both living and non-what? Both living and non-what? Non-living. With which an organism interacts. With which an organism interacts. The sum total of all the conditions in which an organism lives, or with which an organism does what? Interacts. And it is these conditions, living and non-living, that determine the behavior of an organism, that will determine the abundance of an organism and the distribution of an organism. You get the point? It is these conditions, living and non-living. We have what you call the non-living. It could be also be termed as physical-chemical factors. Physical-chemical factors. Physical-chemical factors or physical-chemical conditions. So if we are talking about like soil pH, if we are talking about soil nutrients, if we are talking about climatic factors, climatic factors like precipitation or rainfall, temperature, all those could be physical-chemical factors. But we are also going to see that they are also termed as what? Biotic. So these factors constitute the biotic
factors.
environment of an organism. The physical-chemical factors,
the non-living factors
constitute the abiotic environment of an organism. Like I've said, the water with which the hippos are interacting is non-living. Crocodiles are in non-living water. So if the water temperature rises, the crocodile may run away to another site. You get the point? If the salinity of that water changes, certain organisms may be favored, others may not be what? Favored. So these factors also affect the abundance and the distribution of what? Of living organisms in an environment. And we are going to look at them. But if we don't call them the abiotic factors or abiotic environment, we can also call them physical environment. Simply. Physical. Although in advanced books of ecology, This is preferred physical-chemical factors. But we can also call it the what? The
Physical environment.
In other words, the physical environment are all the other factors other than the living organisms.
Itself.
Are we there? All the other factors other than
The living organism.
the living organisms with which an organism interacts. That is the physical environment. In other words, we will talk about climatic factors here. And we say that climatic factors, one is temperature. And when we are looking at these factors, it should not only be looked at with respect to animals, but also to plants. Are we there? But also to plants.
Humidity.
So if we are talking about light,
Humidity.
I've already told you that in Chibala you will find some plants growing tall. Are we there? And forming a dense canopy there, which obstructs light penetration to the surface. And you may find the lower plants either absent or with started growth because they're not receiving enough what? Sunlight. So another one could be what?
Humidity.
Rainfall or precipitation. What is the difference between the two? Or they mean the same? Rainfall or what?
Precipitation.
Precipitation. Humidity is what? What is the humidity? The amount of water vapor in the
atmosphere.
The amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. But also the air currents. The air what?
Air current.
The air currents. Sometimes known as wind. All those are non-living or physical factors. Physical factors. We can expand the list and include. We can expand the list of physical factors.
Pressure.
Come again?
Pressure.
Pressure. Pressure. Let us altitude.
Altitude. Okay.
And topography. Altitude.
And topography.
Topography. What is topography? What is topography? Topography.
The general appearance of the physical appearance of an environment. Yes. Could be flat.
Flatland, sloped, and so on.
Yes.
Of course, we may not categorize these as climatic factors. We simply categorize them on their own. In water.
Acidity.
pH. But this can also apply to soil.
Can also apply to soil.
Soil biota or soil organisms. Another one. Oxygen. Have you ever had something which you call wave what?
Wavelength.
Wave currents, or we can call it tides. Something like that.
Wave currents or tides.
Number 5. This is for terrestrial organisms, those which live on land. Organisms which live on land are called terrestrial organisms. So that word terrestrial in ecology means on what?
On land.
On land. Then aquatic means what?
Water.
In water. But you will hear about something called background. Background. For example, a chameleon When it is a green background, it changes color.
Camouflage.
It camouflages and it becomes green like the background. If it is brown background, the pigment in its skin will adjust and
Appear green.
it will appear brown. Are we there? That kind of blending with the environment is a strategy of avoiding predation. It cannot easily be identified if it resembles the background. You get the point? Yeah. So the non-living factors, the factors of the physical environment or the abiotic factors will determine the abundance and distribution of organisms. And I am going also to talk about the other part. So the living environment, yes.
All factors. Instead of putting conditions, I put factors, both living and non-living, and organisms interacts with.
No problem, because we can also say biotic factors for biotic environment. So the living conditions are given that name, biotic environment. So if we defined a biotic environment as all the physical or non-living conditions, non-living factors, are we there? With which an organism interacts. Or we also said that abiotic factors are those factors other than the living organisms with which an organism interacts. Then the opposite is true for biotic. All the living organisms with which an organism interacts. Are we there? Of whatever size. They could be as tiny as parasites, internal parasites in the body, or ectoparasites. Ectoparasites. They could be as big as the predators. Are we there? They could be of any size, provided it is a living organism that influences the abundance and distribution of that organism. You get the point? So the biotic environment includes all what? All
organisms.
living
Organisms.
With which an organism does what? Interacts. With which an organism interacts. And now, these biotic factors would also be given a name, biotic interactions. We can call the biotic factors
Biotic interactions.
Yes. To emphasize a certain definition which I'm going to give you, which was given by an ecologist known as Ernest Hickel in 1985.
Yes.
Ernest Hickel used the word interactions. So biotic factors would also be called biotic what?
Interactions.
And the biggest interaction, the biggest biotic interaction could be given a general term, which is symbiosis. Which is what? Symbiosis. That word symbiosis simply meaning a close association. Close. So we can have a loose association. And we can have what?
Close association.
A close association. So a close association where two organisms belonging to different species
benefit.
Are we there? Belonging to different what?
Species.
Both benefit from the relationship. what we call mutualism.
Mutualism.
You get the point? So mutualism is a kind of interspecific association. Interspecific what?
Association.
In which both partners do what?
Benefit.
Yeah, benefit from that association. Let us give some examples of this symbiotic relationship, which we are calling what? Mutualism. You've ever heard of the lichen? What is the lichen? You said
Pioneer plant.
So it is a mutualistic association, in which there is what? A fungus and what? Algae. The alga is photosynthetic. Are we there? This fungus is non-photosynthetic. Are we there? In other words, organic compounds, such as carbohydrates, made by the alga are enjoyed. They are used to feed the what? Fungus. But how does the fungus benefit? Because we say in mutualism, both partners benefit from the association, from the interspecific association. Both partners benefit. So how does the fungus benefit?
The algae.
Okay, how does the algae benefit? The fungus obtains organic nutrients made by photosynthesis in the algal cells. What about the fungus? Sorry,
The alga.
The alga. Yes, sir.
Absorption of water from them by the fungus. I mean the algae.
The fungus is the habitat to the alga. In turn, the alga photosynthesizes and provides organic nutrients to the fungus, which is non-photosynthetic. Are we there? So that would be mutualistic. But there is another association, which is known as a mycorrhiza. A mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza, which is mainly found in trees, like tropical trees. Tropical trees. A mycorrhiza. What is the mutualistic? What are the mutualistic benefits? But before the mutualistic benefit, what is the mycorrhiza? Because you have ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. But what is mycorrhiza? Okay. Terminology.
The new one.
Yes. There is ectomycorrhiza and endomycorrhiza. But the word myco or mycology means the study of, what is mycology? Mycology is the study of fungi.
Fungus.
It is the study of fungi.
So
Ecology is the study of fungi.
Yeah.
And I've called the mutualistic association a mycorrhiza. So does that tell you that one of the members, the partners, is the what?
It's a fungus.
In that association. Which is the other? What is the other partner? What about the second part? Yes, sir.
A dead plant, a saprophytes, a group of saprophytes.
Why do you say dead? It is a living plant
A
root.
living plant root, yes.
Are we there?
Yes.
The mycorrhiza are an intimate and mutualistic association between a fungus and a what? A plant what?
Plant root.
Root. A plant root, specifically trees. Specifically what? The trees. So if this is a plant, a plant like this, are we there? And maybe this is the root. Most cases, the roots for dicotyledonous plants, especially the trees. Trees are dicots, not monocots. Grasses are monocots. But trees are
Dicots.
dicots. Now, these dicots, in most cases, they have what we call a taproot. Are we there? Not the fibrous, but what?
Taproot.
The taproot. That taproot here always develops a mutualistic association with a fungus that has got a branching network of what we call the mycelium and hyphae. Are we there? That branching network will penetrate deep. Yeah? It forms a lot of branching whatever, branching networks. Get the point? Extending where? Extending deep into the layers, different layers of soil, where the plant root would not reach. Are we there? In the process, the network, the branching network of the fungus provides a large surface area for absorption of nutrients from different. Are we there? And these nutrients are required for the physiology of the plant, for photosynthesis, but mainly physiology.
Physiology, yes.
Physiology of the plant. Now, the tree is also photosynthetic. It is also photosynthetic. And through the root, the tree, because we have what we call the source and the seed. Are we there? The leaves and the source. Organic nutrients, or what we call photosynthesis, products of photosynthesis, move from the source, are we there? Through the phloem sieve tubes, are we there? From sieve tubes of the stem, to the phloem sieve tubes of the root, and they are availed to the fungus that will continue to do what? To grow and search for more nutrients for the plant. However, the fungus could be at the surface of the root. Are we there? That one would be called ectomycorrhiza. But if the fungus penetrates deep into the tissues of the root, that would be called endomycorrhiza. Now, you are going to go back and interest yourselves with these mutualistic associations. Are we there? Writing with examples about mycorrhiza, ecto, endo, and others, like we have what you call the, have you ever heard what you call rhizopus?
Rhizopus.
Okay, not rhizopus, okay. Let us use the English term. Nitrogen fixing bacteria. Nitrogen fixing what? Bacteria. Which species do you know of nitrogen fixing bacteria? Huh? Rhizobium, mainly rhizobium, I think. Mainly that one. So, as you are writing, so our coursework will be to write with examples that write about what? Mutualistic associations among organisms. Are we there? So the rhizobium and others, you write about them and then tell us how do the partners benefit from them. Yes, with examples, write short notes on association, on mutualistic associations among living organisms. Among living organisms. And then the second part, you write about other biotic interactions in natural ecosystems. Write short notes about other biotic interactions in natural ecosystems. Now, write notes on other biotic interactions in natural ecosystems. Natural ecosystems. Yeah, to continue our conversation, we've got organisms which are known as herbivores. Have you heard of herbivores?
Yes.
Now, herbivores have got a group of microorganisms. They are rumen. Are we there? That helps them in digestion of cellulose, which is abundant in the plant matter they feed on. You get the point? And they are protozoa, they are like protozoans or protist organisms. But I'm only going to call them microorganisms. So you're going to read about them and write about them. Where are they found? They are found in the stomach. Are we there? In the stomach of what? Ruminants. In the stomach of what? Ruminants. And you know the stomach of these ruminants is four-chambered. It has omasum, reticulum, and the rumen. Are we there? Now, we know they chew the cud. They chew the what? The cud. And that chewing of the cud is known as regurgitation. Isn't it? We call it what? Regurgitation. But with the humans, the non-ruminants, the non-ruminants, we are not able to chew the cud. And we are less dependent on leafy food or plant whatever, on grasses, for example. It means that within the stomach of these ruminants, there is a physiological strategy that enables them to extract nutrients out of the cellulose containing foods. They have a strategy or a mechanism of obtaining nutrients from the cellulose-rich foods. And that strategy is called cellulase enzyme. Are we there? The microorganisms here secrete an enzyme, which is known as what? Cellulase. It is this cellulase enzyme that enables these ruminants to digest cellulose. Cellulose is also a polysaccharide, just like starch. It's also what? A polysaccharide, made up of long, it's a polymer of glucose molecules. But to break down that cellulose into glucose, which is then absorbed into the bloodstream of a herbivorous animal, it needs that enzyme called what? Cellulase. And that cellulase is secreted by a group of microorganisms in the stomach, mainly the rumen of what? Of ruminants. Of ruminants. Now, in other words, yeah, even in termites, ruminants and termites. Even the termites are able to eat wood, the wood, which we cannot, not only the wood, but also these peppers, because of these microorganisms that secrete cellulase. So I'm asking a question. The animal, the herbivore, the termites, benefit by obtaining that enzyme which aids the digestion of cellulose. How about the microorganisms? How do they benefit from that mutualistic association? Yes, sir. There is speaking.
Yes.
So,
I think they benefit from
what the benefits?
the microorganisms benefit from getting the habitat of those organisms.
They are herbivores. They are herbivores. They get
Filter.
over there. And maybe another thing we could say that the host does not produce um, a reactionary kind of immune system that would destroy these microorganisms. So the host also tolerates and harbors those microorganisms. You had a different view towards that. Okay. Now,
Maybe what about because I'm sure it's microorganisms like that. Like I was saying, they also benefited because like when this animal feeds, that is like food for the microorganisms directly. But like as they consume that food, they break it like that is just a byproduct because that the animal benefits from.
okay. So my assignment will prompt you to read more and understand these biotic interactions. Biotic interactions. Going ahead, we have other symbiotic, because I said symbiosis means close association between two organisms belonging to different species. Are we there? And that close association is made through what we call trophic relationships. Are we there? Feeding what? Relationships. You've seen in most of these examples, the relationship involves what? Feeding. Are we there? And in ecology, we call the feeding relationships, we call them trophic food relationships. So there is some exchange of food from one member or from one partner to another partner. But the relationships may also be spatial, space. Are we there? One organism offering a habitat for another. You understand? But most of the relationships are what? Trophic. Going to the second group of because all this is mutualism. As an example of symbiosis. There's always a confusion, especially by the non-ecologists. They always confuse mutualism with symbiosis. Are we there? Mutualism, I've said, two closely related organisms of different species benefit from one another in the association. But some people will call that symbiosis. They are wrong. Symbiosis simply means what? Now, the second one is parasitism. You are free, and it is allowed to call this relationship plus, like that. Plus. What does that one mean? It means both benefit from the association. Then this one would be called plus minus. That association, that symbiotic association, known as parasitism. So in this case, we can define parasitism as an interspecific relationship, an interspecific association between the two, organisms, where one benefits, while another one suffers harm. One benefits, another one is harmed. Are we there? One organism, it is the symbiotic relationship, and an interspecific association in which one organism does what? Benefits. And that benefits is known as what? The loss. While another organism loses. but we can say
Suffers. Is harm.
And that one, no, the one who benefits to the what? The parasite.
The parasite.
The host does not benefit in the parasite that benefits. Another organism suffers harm, and this is what? The host. Are we there?
I've been teaching, but I used to understand symbiosis the wrong way. Today I've seen the difference. I've now seen that symbiosis is simply a relationship between two different organisms, closely related. Then now you are defining mutualism. Is that relationship where now both of them benefit? Then now in parasitism, one benefits and the other loses.
Yes.
I understand.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, the host suffers harm, the parasite benefits. But I should tell you, I don't want to use the word wise, but a successful parasite should never kill its host. If you are a parasite and you want to reproduce, you keep on reproducing and spreading, increasing in numbers, never kill your host. Whereas you may have an alternative host, it is better, it is advisable for you to slowly extract nutrients from your host, as the host's life also does what? Continues, rather than killing it. You get the point? So one strategy. So now the parasites are grouped, of course, into what you call ectoparasites. Ectoparasites. And then what? Endoparasites. Let the video face the members talk about one type.
Ectoparasite.
With the examples,
So ectoparasite, these are parasites which exist there on the outer side part of the organism.
not use the one outer side, use the term this on the surface of the body.
So there are parasites which exist on the outer surface of the organism, which acts as the host. Then examples we may go for like a pig, which exists on the outer surface of the cow. Then we have fleas, we have lice on what? On the
Specific.
lice on human beings, then
Pigs.
and even pigs.
That's the one that is
The endoparasites. These are parasites that live inside the organism. Inside the organism's body. And examples would be tapeworms, what is human beings, both human beings and other animals. Then they liver fruit, mostly the domestic animals, the sheep, the goats, everything.
the liver flow.
In the liver, then in the liver.
Yes. And parasites,
Plasmodium.
they are many. There's given examples which are
The tapeworm.
the tapeworm. The tapeworm are mainly of two main types. They are those which we call common tapeworm. Common
Tapeworm.
tapeworm, and then beef.
Tapeworm.
The results of the beef tapeworm. These are of public health importance because many people who consume pork and beef are ignorant of their existence, and yet they are there. And in fact, there are many projects in the Department of Zoology which are focused on this, and they are trying to sensitize the communities, pork eating communities, beef eating communities about their existence. Parasitologists, you will study about what called basic parasitology in the second year and applied parasitology in the third year. But parasitologists are concerned with this because when you eat half cooked pork or undercooked pork, half roasted pork, you are likely to get this pork tapeworm, and it is called Tinea solium.
Sorry.
Tinea solium.
Species.
It has got a very large head, which we call a solex. They call it scolex. So you find it something like this, with a large head, and some, they call them what? Hooks. Not suckers.
Those are suckers.
Then it has some segmented body like this, and each of this is called proboscis. Yes. Are we together? It is found in the tissue of the pork, which you enjoy or which you consume, especially if it is what? Half cooked or undercooked. A similar species in beef, it is called Tinea saginata. Tinea saginata. All of these are public health importance because of the large consumption, of these foods, pork and beef. And it is you to save the world, save your communities from infestation. These are not now called the infection, but you call them what? Infestation by these parasites, by those parasites. Have you ever heard that called the hookworm?
Yes.
The hookworm. That hookworm mainly
infests the duodenum, and they give it that name, angiostoma duodenum. Angiostoma duodenum. It is also an parasite. You get the point? Have you ever heard what's called Ascaris lumbricoides? Ascaris. What is the English name of Ascaris? Ascaris lumbricoides. Ascaris lumbricoides. The round one. The round one. Then there is another also worm, because these worms belong to what we call, okay, some of them we can call them nematodes. They're called nematodes. Have you ever had what you call the filarial worm? Filarial worm. The filarial worm is also an endoparasite, which is called Wuchereria bacrophyta. You've ever heard of this? Wuchereria. Like that. Bacrophyta. And the bilharzia. You have heard of bilharzia? Bilharzia is caused by Cystosomas mansonari. You've heard of that? Cystosoma mansonari. All of these are endoparasites. This one causes elephantiasis, which already. Okay, then this one causes bilharzia. Onkosaka. You had even a project, I think, vector control division on river blindness. That they call them neglected tropical diseases, isn't it? Neglected what? Tropical diseases. This was one of them. River blindness. It is called what? Onkosaka. C. Onkosaka. With X. Okay, you research about it, but it is also an parasite. So the effect they have on the host, for them they benefit by enjoying the nutrients. But if it is, for example, in the GIT, what is GIT? If the present is the GIT, what is GIT?
Gastrointestinal.
They call it the gastrointestinal tract.
From
today onwards, use the word GIT instead of alimentary canal. Are we there? Call it what?
GIT.
The gastrointestinal tract. So if they infest the GIT, like in the duodenum or in the ileum, these worms, these endoparasites may block. They may block the free passage of food, but they may also deprive the host of already digested nutrients, the soluble products of digestion. Are we there? Yes. Stomach pains and other blockages associated with these endoparasites are a big problem to people. That is why you should deworm. How often should you deworm? After every how many months?
Monthly.
How many? After 3 months. Wow. Because you've ever had in your primary, it was in the primary, the 4 F's. What are they?
Food,
This is
food,
food,
fingers,
not
flies,
flies, and what?
fingers.
Fingers. Who can narrate the story? What is the transmission mechanism of the 4 F's from what to what to what? Feces, you go to flies. Then you go to food. Then you go to fingers. Meaning those endoparasites may be present in the what? Feces. The feces of mammals, humans, and so on, they are carried by, transmitted by flies to what?
The food.
To the food we eat.
From food, fingers, to
And,
mouth.
and the fingers pick that contaminated food into the GIT. You get that cycle? So, as the biologists or ecologists, we should sensitize the community about the existence of these parasites and the effect they have on us. But my interest here is not only to talk about the ecto and endoparasites, but I want you also to read about parasitic adaptations. Parasitic what? Adaptations. That is part 3 of your coursework. How are parasites suited to their mode of life? How are parasites suited to their mode of what?
Life.
Of life. How are parasites suited to their mode of life? This is a short semester, and by November 30th, we will be expected to finish these things and do some exams. By Christmas holiday, you will have completed exams. Come back in January, you will be in the second year or in another year. So we call it a new normal. A new normal. The new normal means what? Students are going to do a lot of work on their own. Provided I will look for the breakdown of these course units, and you can do your own note, your own reading. The little time we get, we shall be talking about these things. Yeah? You will also read about what we call amensolism. Amensolism, which is +0. Oh, okay. Amensolism and also what you call commensalism.
Commensalism.
Commensalism. I'll not tell you whether it's +0 or ±. Read about them, and you will support your write-up with some examples. Now, all of those symptoms are known as symbiotic associations. They are symbiotic what? Associations. The others which are not symbiotic, but which are still in that category, when an animal, which we call a herbivore, I'm still busy, I'm not receiving calls. When a herbivore, this is an animal, it's a what? A plant. That one is also a biotic interaction. Are we there? And the herbivore could be a grazer. A grazer. A grazer is a piece of grass. These ones are what? Grassy
Grass eaters.
eaters. And if you are in a national park, for example, you'll find many herbivores which are exclusively grazers. They only feed on grass. Can you give me examples? Like, suppose you are in for a national park.
Antelopes, generally.
Okay, I told you be specific when you are talking about antelopes. Talk about the species.
Cob, Uganda cob.
Because there is another category here called what? A browser. Are we there? This one mainly feed on plant foliage, plant leaves. Then they are the Catholic feeders, of mixed feeders. For them, such as zebras, they will graze when the grass is abundant, like during the wet season. Are we there? But when grass becomes more fibrous, dry, and scarce in the dry season, they resort to browsing. Are we there? So, in the dry season, they spend most of the time browsing. Are we there? In the wet season, they'll spend most of the time grazing, feeding on grass because of its abundance. So those ones are mixed what?
Mixed feeders.
Feeders. Browsers, is an elephant a browser or a grazer? An elephant.
Is a mixed feeder.
It's a mixed feeder. So we'll put it here. Are we there?
The giraffe.
What about a warthog? Do you know what call it? A warthog? Warthog. It looks like a pig, but it's a small size, and you'll find it there in the national park. You'll find there's like small pig-like animals. You know
Yes.
the warthogs.
It is a grazer.
And even the bush pigs. They are what?
It's a grazer.
You put them in graze. They eat grass.
The grass.
They eat grass. Now, which animal is the exclusively browser? Very good. The giraffe. We put it in what? Yes, the giraffes. But we also have others. What about, do you know what you call the topi? The topi. Have you ever had animals called the topi?
No.
Eh?
No.
Go, you'll get it browse about the topi. Eh? Topi. Then you'll also read about bushbacks. Bushbacks. Are they browsers or grazers? A bushback. My name belongs to bushback. Makerere. Bukenya is what? Makerere. Did you know these Islam names? When they talk of Bukenya, that is Makerere, but ours is called the bushback. It always exists alone, not in groups, and you find them running. When they see someone, they run away. They are fast runners. So my name belongs to that. But there is also a water bug. The Baganda here call it enjoy water bug. The water bug is large animal, just like a calf. A calf. But it is bigger than bushbug. A bushbug is like a pot. What size? But we have also impala. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah. Is that an impala? Grazer, but a browser. It's a grazer. So now, I'm trying to show you that in a grassland community, in a grassland ecosystem, you'll find all of these groups there. You'll find there the browsers, the grazers, the mixed feeders, and important for you to remember here is that there is what we call niche separation. Niche separation. Niche separation. among the herbivorous communities. Need separation, which I'm going to explain, is to minimize or reduce interspecific competition. Interspecific competition. A community of herbivores is divided into browsers, mixed feeders, so that they do not feed on the same plant species, or they do not feed on the same plant parts, on the same plant species, or on the same plant parts. That is what I'm calling a niche separation. In order to avoid or to minimize interspecific competition and to survive, to live in the same habitat. They enjoy the same habitat with the same habitat resources, but they don't eat the same foods. Some eat grasses, others will eat plant foliage, plant leaves, others will select food depending on the season. Depending on what? On the season. In 1970, a researcher and an ecologist who was known as Bell in 1970 conducted a widely published research on what he called the grazing succession of herbivores. He called it what? The grazing what? Succession of herbivores in Serengeti. Serengeti National Park is found in Tanzania. It is one of the largest savanna parks in East Africa. They call it what? Serengeti National Park. For Bell, when studying about the grazing succession of herbivores in Serengeti National Park, he realized that all of these groups of mammalian communities, mammalian herbivores, are represented, and they are of different sizes and select different foods. Are we there? He discovered that there is what called Thompson gazelle. Are we there? Small mammal, but mainly interested in fresh sprouting grass. Are we there? Like after a fire. Because fire is a management tool which is used in the savanna ecosystem. Fire. So after burning, the burning may be intentional or prescribed burning, or it could be, should I say accidental? It could be accidental, but it could be started by pastoralists, herdsmen, because you find pastoralists grazing their cattle from these national parks, sometimes illegally. Are we there? But if it is a dry season, for example, and if the water is only in this national park, in Lake Mbolo, in Queen Elizabeth, and the surrounding communities are pastoral communities, cattle keepers, will you let their animals, their cattle, to die when there are water sources inside the park? Will you, if you are the park warden? Because the rule or the law says no grazing of cattle inside the park. But now it is a dry season, no water, no grass outside, and an expansive very large piece of land known as a national park is there, and the cattle are dying. What will you do? What will you do? Okay, so maybe you could form what you call committees. You could form maybe natural resource management committees, and you interact with the communities. You tell them when to bring their cattle, when to leave. You understand? You agree on the what terms and what conditions of use. But you will find there challenges because they call it illegal. They call it illegal activity. If the cattle, if the goats, if the sheep, the livestock are allowed into the park. You understand? So now, I was saying that just like in other savanna national parks, even in Serengeti national parks, you find there different groups of herbivores. One of them are called Thompson's gazelle. Then there are those impalas. There are even the zebras. And the zebras are called plains zebra or common zebra. The scientific name is Icus. You know it, they belong to the horse family. So now, Ben found out that there is a grazing succession. One group of herbivores colonizes or feeds an area and moves away. You understand? Maybe the Thompson's gazelle are interested in fresh, proteinous, and nutritious grass with less fiber. So that when you grass moves away. After a while, after some few days, you find another group. Are we there? Maybe the impala is also coming. They feed in the same area. But for them, they will even go for, because the Thompson's gazelle would pick the leaf blades. They eat with the move. Just picking this. The leaf what? Blades. And they go. Then when another group, the impalas come, they will pick the left blades. They move. When the zebra comes, it picks the more fibrous, like the little sheep, and then the stems. You understand? So that kind of feeding arrangement where one group of grazers consumes a certain resource or food and moves away. Another group of another species uses the same area, consumes and moves away. Another one, like the zebra, whose anatomy, digestive anatomy, can enable them to utilize more fibrous grass. So the anatomy of the Thompson's gazelle, the early grazers, cannot enable it to digest more fibrous grass material. What about the anatomy of zebra? It can enable it to process the fibrous grass material and extract nutrients from the leftovers. That one is called a grazing succession, or we call it niche separation, or you can call it horizontal separation. You can call it what? Horizontal separation is a strategy of avoiding inter-specific competition. The strategy of avoiding interspecific competition. So you will find some of these gazelles, the plains zebra, the impalas, all feeding in the same area without competing, without interspecific competition. You get the point? We also observe that here in Mabila Forest, in an area called Najembe. Have you ever been there? Najembe. In Najembe, you will find people slaughtering butchers. They call them butchers. Butchermen. Butchermen, I don't know. Butchers. They are the people.
Yeah.
They will slaughter chicken, they slaughter cows, they slaughter goats to sell the meat to the bypassers, to the travelers. But the leftovers, the intestines, what offers, they are always thrown away. The leftovers are thrown away. Now, the number of birds within that forest, including the marabou stork, like this marabou stork on Makerere campus, the carol, they are there. You will find there the vultures, we call them the hooded vultures in Sega. Hooded vultures, you know them? The hooded vultures. So all of these are meat eaters. They are flesh eaters. You also find they call them pied crows. You know the crows, the reverend bird, the bird with the white collar, So all of those groups of birds are there. The marabou storks are there. The pied crows are there. The hooded vultures, they are there. And they are all targeting these thrown leftovers. But do you know what they do? One group, maybe the marabou stork, will come early and feed any portion of the leftovers from animals, slaughtered animals. They feed without the vultures coming, and they leave. After a certain time, you will see the vultures also coming in large numbers. They feed whatever they want. They also leave. By midday, they are not there. Then later in the day, you'll find the pied crows also coming. They avoid being in the feeding area in the same time, at the same time. That one is an example of niche separation or horizontal separation in order to avoid interspecific competition. You get the point? So whatever we are talking about here, we are discussing two biotic interactions at the same time. We've talked about herbivory, but we are also talking about what we call competition. We are also talking about what? Competition is what? Competition is also a biotic interaction. A biotic what? Interaction. A biotic interaction in which organisms strive to use resources that are in limited supply. Resources in limited supply. It could be plants. Plants will strive, they will compete for resources like sunlight, resources like mineral nutrients in soil. Plants will strive for water. They will compete for water in soil. Get the point? So plants also compete. Are we there? They compete with one another. But I've just shown you also animals. They also compete, mainly for food, as I've shown you. Animals also compete for mates. Animals also compete for breeding grounds, or what we call nesting sites. Nesting sites. Animals compete for those. And even space. So the phenomenon of competition is very serious in the ecosystem. And animals, I don't know whether these animals sit together and they say, for you, you go I, and for us, we shall go after you. I don't know. But for me, what I think, if the vultures find the marabou storks have already arrived, they will stay around in trees. watching and waiting patiently. So if they see them leaving, so they also arrive. You get the point? As the tide crows are also somewhere, watching and waiting patiently. But over time, as time goes on, it becomes a behavior which ethologists, the study of behavior, is known as what? Ethology. The study of behavior. So you can study the behavior of birds in Mabira forest. The behavior of birds in Najembe trading area in Mabira forest. And ethologists can be interested in such a study. How do they partition the time to avoid interspecific competition? A scientist who was an economist was called Pauli. And you had what? The Pauli exclusion. Okay, let us use the other name, which is common. The other name is called GOES. They call it what? GOES. GOES is competitive exclusion principle. Competitive exclusion principle. GOES. It is also simply called Gaussian. Gaussian what? Principle. Gaussian principle. It is about competition. So if you hear anything called Gaussian principle, that is the competitive exclusion principle, which states that no two species can coexist in the same niche. Can coexist in the same niche indefinitely. No two species can coexist in the same niche, ecological niche indefinitely. We can add there a statement and say that with the time, one species hosts the other. The host is displaced. One species hosts or displaces the other. So that is the competitive exclusion principle, which was arrived at by GOES. Ivan, I think the name was Ivan GOES. But what is more common is GOES. That's the name which is more common. It's GOES. And two species. He arrived at this principle by studying the growth trends, the growth curves, or population growth curves of two species of Paramecium. He studied Paramecium aurelia, which was cultured on a certain medium, and then another species known as Paramecium cordatum. These big scientific names are always underlined, and the generic name should always begin with capital letter, a species name with a small letter or lowercase. Now, when these species of Paramecium were cultured or grown separately, when GOES when he grew the two species on different media, on different nutrients, and they were separate. In both cases, he got, if this is the time, and even this one is what? Time. Then this is numbers of paramecia. And even here, numbers of what? Paramecia. The growth curve, which he got in both cases, was sigmoid. Sigmoid curve begins with a larger phase, followed by a longer phase for exponential growth, and then what? A stationary phase. So even here, we got a larger phase, followed by stationary phase, sigmoid. For P, Aurelia, and here for P, or data. Then the two species of paramecia were then mixed together to grow on the same on the same medium. They were connected together. And then he recorded the population or growth, the growth trends of the growth trends of the mixed culture, where both the species are grown on the same medium or same nutrients. But surprisingly, he obtained a normal sigmoid growth curve for P. Aurelia, for Paramecium Aurelia, like this, like that. Are we there? Sigmoid. And then, for the other species, which is called Podatum, or data. He obtained something like this. People datum grew negatively. Are we there? Okay, first of all, increased slightly, reached a maximum growth. Are we there? The peak. And then it slowed extinction. Are we there? This was P for data. And this was P. Aurelia. But important for you to note is that the rate of growth, the increase in numbers, the rate of reproduction of Paramecium Aurelia was not as great as in the separate culture. Are we there? In other words, sharing the same resources, the same food affected the growth and reproduction rate of this stronger competitor. Because the people here having survived in this mixed culture means it was a stronger competitor. It had a more competitive advantage. It could utilize the resources better in the mixed culture than the people that are. Are we together? But it did not attain the growth rate like it did in a separate culture. You understand? So that means that in a specific competition, apart from affecting one individual whose numbers reduced to zero, whose numbers reduced to extinction, even the more competitive the organism, the species with the competitive advantage is also affected, that it cannot attain its original biotic potential, its original reproductive potential when mixed. As a result of what? Interspecific competition. So it was from these studies that goes stated the other principle, the competitive exclusion principle, that if two species are depending on the same resource, in other words, if they have the same niche, they can never coexist indefinitely. One will push the other to extinction.
Yes, with that principle, will it still apply when there is any separation of competition?
Now, living organisms have adapted to sharing of resources and to minimizing interspecific competition by one of the strategies is called horizontal separation. Horizontal separation. Another strategy is known as, before I give you another strategy, remember I gave you two examples of horizontal what? Separation. You remember the grazing succession of herbivorous, of grazers in Serengeti National Park, which includes the Thompson's gazelle and other species. You read about them to know the story more. Number two, I gave you the birds in Mabira Forest that share the same food resource. Are we there? The same food resource, but feeding at different times of the what? The day. Another example I can give you are what we call diurnal and nocturnal birds. Have you ever had birds making noise? Have you ever heard of them? Those are nocturnal. They are very active at night. Very active. So they have chosen to hunt for their prey at night and leave the diurnal birds during the daytime. So as the diurnal birds are sleeping, the other ones are busy enjoying the niche freedom without any competitor. Don't you think that is a good strategy? You feed during the day, for male feed at night. But when we are feeding on the same fruit, when we are feeding on the same rodents, same rats, when we are feeding on the same small birds. But for me, I feed at night, nocturnal. Are we there? Then for you, you feed during the day. That one is also niche separation, which you can call horizontal separation. I will give you another strategy of organisms apart from horizontal separation. We have another strategy of avoiding interspecific what? Competition. We give it a name, vertical separation. We give it a name, what? Vertical separation. So, strategies of minimizing interspecific what? Competition. The first one, we call it horizontal separation. And the best example I give you was the Serengeti mammals, herbivores, the birds of Nigerian Makerere forest. I've given you the nocturnal and diurnal birds, like the owls, and then other predatory birds which feed during the day. You know some of them, predatory birds which feed during the day. Like those which eat rodents, those which eat rats. One of them is called the black kite. The black what? Kite. When I was young, we used to see it very far in the sky. Very far in the sky. And we would sing a song that kamaga, kamaga, maga, maga, kunyanja okulya emmese. Embeba, netujeta embeba. Emmese. In Runyankole, netujeta embeba. That black kite is focusing from very far on, it is focusing on a rat, which is down here, but it is focusing on how to trap it from a distance. And even eagles will eat small mammals They also go somewhere and they focus on how to catch that small mammal. Even if it is a small rabbit, it can come grab it and take off. You understand? There are others which are called the king what? For them they eat fish. All of those are called diano. They feed during the daytime. But we have like the bush babies at night. They feed at night. Those are small mammals, small mammals. Then we have what you call those owls. They also feed at night. Those are called nocturnal. So that separation of day and night feeding is also an example of horizontal separation. Horizontal separation. Then vertical separation simply means feeding at different layers of a resource. For example, if it is a tree, if it is a what? A tree. A tree is made up of different layers. Are we there? This is the ground layer. Yeah? This is the stem. Are we there? And this is the canopy. The canopy or the what? The branches. In the branches we'll find there the leaves. We'll find there the fruits. Are we there? We'll also find there the flowers. So groups of birds will come and feed all on the seeds. Are we there? On the fruits. Others on the leaves. They are not minding about the stem. They don't mind about the stem. Then, a certain species of bird, which is called woodpecker. Woodpecker. For it is called in Kokonamoti, woodpecker. It's interesting. It's not in the canopy, in the branches or leaves. The interest of the woodpecker is the stem. Are we there? And it fits by coming on the stem, it pokes. You know what we call poke? It pokes. And it creates small holes within the wood, like this. Its job is to create small holes which will trap moving insects. So when small insects come, they are trapped in the what? In the spaces of in the holes left by the woodpecker. So the woodpecker flies away and returns to check if there is any food where understand? Is he or she concerned with the canopy or with the leaves? No. He or she, the woodpecker, leaves the fruit seed, the seed seed, the leaf seed to other feeders. And actually, we call them feeding guilds. Feeding what? Guilds. You impress yourself with this one, ecological guild. What is an ecological guild? Guild. But for this particular case, we call it a feeding guild. Because the interest of the woodpecker is only the insects that are trapped in the holes poked in the bark of the tree. Are we there? In the stem. Other groups of feeders will come and eat the roots. Others may not even eat the roots. They are interested in the leaf litter. The leaf litter. As the leaves fall to the ground, certainly centipedes, millipedes, are we there? Centipedes, millipedes, arachnids, and similar, even earthworms are hiding within the pollinator. Are we there? So, There are several eaters of those snails. Are we there? Centipedes, arachnids, earthworms. Where would be their interest? The interest is in the foreign flitter on the ground. It will not interfere. Those other species will not interfere with the insects for the woodpecker. They will not mind about the fruits for the fruit feeders. The fruit feeders in the ecology are known as frugivores. Frugivores. It is a feeding guild comprised of all fruit feeders. Fruit what? Feeders. Another feeding guild of this woodpecker is called insectivores. For them, they're not frugivores, but they are called what? Insectivores. The insectivores are another feeding guild of insect eaters. Insect what? Eaters. Another feeding guild, which I have talked about, is those which feed on mollusks. Mollusks. The soft-bodied animals like snails. So these are called molluscivores. Molluscivores are another feeding guild. Are we there? In the forest environment. Then those which eat grains are another feeding guild, which we call granivores. Granivores. Are we there? But we can have those which are predatory. Are we there? Which are predatory. And we can call them carnivores. You see where the names come from? Carnivores. Flesh eaters. Flesh, like the predatory plants. Equals hawks. Have you heard of hawk? A hawk. Hawk, like this. Hawk. That is a predatory bird. A kite. Blacker kite. It's a predatory bird. There are those which you call buzzards. It's a predatory bird. There are those which you call eagles. Those are called what? Predatory birds. But the ones which I talked about, the parole, they are called scavengers. They are called what?
Scavenger.
Scavengers. They include the marrow stock. Marrow stock. The parole, the hooded vultures. The pied crows, the reverend bird. So, when a certain group of organisms has the same feeding requirements, we call it a feeding group. Are we there? If they have the same food requirements, they call it what? A feeding group. And in case they belong to different species, they will compete. They compete with one another. Either interspecific or intra, even among those members of the same what? Species. You get the point? Now, I was telling you that to minimize interspecific competition, organisms resort to vertical separation. Vertical separation meaning using different strata, of layers of the same resource. Are we there? Of the same what? Resource. You can feed at the ground from organisms in the leaf litter, like the molluscivores. You can feed on the walking insects walking along the stem, like the woodpecker, which is an insectivore. You can feed on the fruits in the canopy of the tree, like the frugivores. You get the point? We can also have what we call leafivore. Leafivore. They feed on what? They feed on leaves. They will come and poke or eat leaves. You get the point? So that is called vertical separation. The same tree, but different groups of feeding individuals that are not competing with one another. Are we there? There are other in biotic interaction. The pollination is a biotic interaction. Pollination. Pollinator and the pollinated. The pollinator benefits. So, it is the other side, but it is not symbiotic. It's not a close association. You get the point? Then another one is called mimicry. Another in biotic interaction is called what? Mimicry. In mimicry, they try to call a model, like butterflies, which are palatable, and those which are unpalatable. Some butterflies could be poisonous, and when a bird feeds on it, it may die. Are we there? That is called unpalatable. If we don't use the word unpalatable for such a poisonous butterfly, we can call it distasteful. Distasteful. Unpalatable. So, birds which feed on butterflies, which feed on butterflies, have learned, because in biology, learning is defined as adaptive changing behavior as a result of past experience. Adaptive changing behavior as a result of past what? If your mother died by eating that species of butterfly, when you were watching, you would be stupid to go for the same species. Are we there? So they learn to avoid the unpalatable or distasteful species of butterflies. You get the point? Now, those which are palatable, those which are non-harmful, have learned to mimic those which are what? Palatable, like the display of the wings. Are we there? We call it a warning coloration. We call it what? A warning what? Coloration. So you find palatable species displaying the wings. Yes. So as the bird look at that display pattern of the unpalatable, they may not recognize that this one is hoodwinking me, deceiving me. So they will also avoid what? They will avoid eating these which are palatable. So in this case, the palatable resemble the unpalatable to avoid predation. Reduce the chances of what? Predation. That is mimicry. But we have types. And interest yourself with that biotic interaction known as mimic. Mimic what? Mimicry. We have two types, types, Batesian mimicry and Mullerian mimicry. Mullerian mimicry. Please also read about them and make some notes about them for your own benefit. Batesian mimicry and Mullerian what? Mimicry. Because there are some species that are not unpalatable, but they move together. Are we there? For example, if I know you are dangerous and you are feared, and I always move with you, Whenever I see you feeding from somewhere, I also come and feed from nearby. Won't it increase my chances of surviving, of avoiding predation? So there are different types of mimicry. Cartesian mimicry, Muradian mimicry are the ones you should read more about. But I would like to stop here and remind you that ecology is a broad field, very broad, a new science which was summarized by Ernest Hickel in these words. He says, these are the words and the definition which Ernest Hickel gave. This is the saying of Ernest Hickel. Hickel is H-E-A. Ernest Hickel defines ecology as the scientific study, like we've been looking at those interactions, you will find that they fit in the definition of ecology by Ernest Hickel. He defined the ecology as the scientific study of interactions. That determine the distribution the scientific study of interactions that determine the distribution and the abundance of organisms. So that definition by Ernest Hickel, just in 1985, summarizes whatever we've been discussing. It says ecology is the scientific study of interactions that determine the distribution and abundance of what? Of organisms. I wish to stop here and wish you good luck. And I think if we get time, we shall meet tomorrow. Good night.